Hello and welcome to Miniature Adventures. I'm Big Lee and this week I want to talk about battles on a budget. So as any of you who have followed this channel will know, I recently had quite a long chat with Ken Reilly, the Yarkshire Wargamer. Now if you know Ken, you'll know he's a massive advocate for huge units. A 96 figure pipe block doesn't even make him blink, let alone break out in a sweat. He's the kind of player who makes big battles feel not just possible but normal. And chatting with him got me thinking about something I've touched on before, but which feels worth revisiting because it's something many historical wargamers dream of, yet also quietly dread, on how on earth can you wargame a big battle without breaking the bank. Now I suspect that many of you have that image in your mind. Thousands of troops clashing across wide fields, cavalry sweeping across flanks, artillery thundering in the distance. The dream is Waterloo, Gettysburg, Borodino, Kursk. These huge iconic moments of military history recreated in miniature. The reality, however, tends to set in pretty quickly because the cost of miniatures, terrain, rulebooks, accessories, that dream can start to look a little more fictional, much more of a financial headache than an exciting project. But it doesn't have to be that way. Now there are some very practical strategies that allow us to bring those epic conflicts to life without draining our bank accounts. Whether you're new to the hobby or a seasoned wargamer looking to stretch your budget, there are ways to do big battles affordably while still keeping the spectacle and excitement we all crave. So one of the most effective ways to manage costs and space and time for that matter is by choosing the right scale. Now I've long preached the mantra go small to go big, and it really does hold up. While 28mm miniatures look amazing, they are incredibly satisfying to paint. The price of building an entire Napoleonic or Civil War army in that scale can be eye-watering. Not to mention, you'll need a pretty large table and a lot of storage space. If you want a full-size battlefield on your dining room table, it's time to think smaller. Scales like 15mm and 10mm offer a brilliant balance between detail and practicality. They're still large enough to have personality and visual impact, but they're much more affordable. Companies like Peter Pig, Old Glory and Petrarchan offer fantastic ranges in these sizes, and there's dozens of other companies. They all cover just about every historical period you could ever want. Warlord's epic scale figures at around 13.5mm are another great middle ground. Detailed enough to look great on the table and small enough to make those big battles manageable and priced very reasonably. But if you're really committed to recreating the largest engagements, Leipzig or the Battle of the Somme, you might want to consider going even smaller. Now scales like 6mm and even 2mm allow you to field massive armies on a standard size table. Imagine playing Borodino in your living room. Companies like Bacchus and Irregular Miniatures are great to go-tos here, offering comprehensive ranges and a surprising amount of detail despite the size. Of course, the beauty of smaller scales goes beyond the cost. You'll use less paint, fewer basic materials. You'll get that dramatic sense of scale that really captures the feel of history. You're not just saving money, you're actually gaining scope. And of course, another way to reduce the time and cost of massive battles is to rethink how you represent troops on the table. Not every miniature has to be one-to-one representation of a soldier. Most rule systems that I played allow for abstraction, where a single figure represents many more men, or a platoon or a company or even a regiment, and this opens up some incredibly efficient possibilities. So when you've got a set of rules that says this is the figure ratio, double the figure ratio so that you've got more men for your figures on the table. You can play around with most rule sets in that way. Of course, the benefit here isn't just financial, it's also about time. Painting hundreds of figures can feel like a chore, but painting bases representing whole battalions, it's much more manageable. For many of us, time is as valuable a resource as money, so anything that cuts down on the hours needed to field an army is a big win. Now technology of course offers another route to affordable armies, especially if you're open to experimenting. If you have access to a 3D printer or even just a friend who does, you can start building armies for a fraction of the cost of traditional models. STL files from creators on platforms like Wargaming 3D, Thingiverse or My Mini Factory can be downloaded and printed for pennies per figure. Resin printing is particularly good for small scale infantry and vehicles with plenty of crisp detail even at 6mm. And if you're not quite ready to dive into 3D printing world, there's always paper miniatures. Peter Dennis's Paperboys army series, for example, offers entire armies that you can print and cut out and mount on card bases. And when painted or coloured well, these paper soldiers can look surprisingly effective on the tabletop. There are also plenty of free printable options online, especially for generic units. Now, terrain is another area where I think costs can balloon quickly, especially for big battles that need big tables. But it doesn't have to be expensive. You can build effective and attractive terrain using everyday materials. Foam, cardboard and filler can go a long way when it comes to making hills, buildings and roads. Old packaging is often a goldmine for hobbyists. Think polystyrene plastic trays and sturdy cardboard. Printable terrain is another great option. So, sites again like Wargamers Vault or Drive-Thru RPG have plenty of free or low cost downloads that give you instant access to buildings, fences, hedgerows. Combine that with a flat mat, either a printed battle mat or a cloth that can drape over terrain, and some modular scatter terrain on top, and you've got a flexible setup that won't break the bank or your storage space. You might also consider pooling terrain with friends or gaming clubs. Sharing resources expands your available scenery without increasing your personal costs, and it's a great way to build a sense of community amongst your group of friends. Another cost saver that I found is, if you've got multiple periods that you play, try and play them in the same scale so that you can reuse terrain between different periods. That way, for instance, I've got several 15mm forces and 6mm forces where I can use the terrain in any of those games. A hill is a hill and it will work just as well in 6mm as 15mm, but for my 15mm stuff I've got roads and hedgerows and buildings that can be used in multiple periods, saving money, saving space. So come back to 6mm wargaming, and there is a point to this and I'll get to that in a minute. One of the best things I can say to you, best pieces of advice, is to build slowly and build smart. Big armies don't appear overnight. Break your projects down into phases. Start with core units, your line infantry, artillery and command figures, and expand gradually. Focus first on the elements that you use in multiple battles, so maybe pick on the units that are present at a particular battle and then expand out from that. Over time you'll be surprised by how much you accumulate, and as I say, if you collect it in 6mm for instance, the ranges are huge, there's enormous possibilities there, and you can continue to build and add to those armies for many years after you've started the project. Of course, the other big cheaper way of playing is reuse. Some figures work across multiple periods, as I mentioned with terrain, but you might be able to find someone selling an army cheaper. Bring and buy stands, eBay, sites like that. Even sometimes on Facebook Marketplace there are units that you may be able to buy that are cheaper by buying them that way than if you bought them brand new. The second-hand market is a treasure trove for historical wargamers. Between eBay, Facebook Marketplace and forums, you'll often find full armies being sold at a fraction of their original cost. Wargaming conventions and bring and buy sales are also great places to score deals or swap figures with fellow hobbyists. And don't forget to sign up for newsletters from companies like Warlord, Victrix and Perry Miniatures. They regularly offer discounts and bundles that can help stretch your budget. Big battles of course don't have to be solo affairs. You can share projects with other people, thereby splitting the cost of playing a larger battle. So maybe that's a group of friends, a particular gaming buddy or a club. But by sharing the project between you, you save money, you can collect collectively, and everyone benefits from the resultant collection of miniatures and terrain. Now, I hinted at this earlier. You keep in mind that you don't need to own or field an entire army all at once. Focus on scenarios rather than full orders of battle. Plenty of historical engagements were small or asymmetric, offering great tactical variety without requiring hundreds of models. Battles like Quatre Bras, Soanoana or Bunker Hill can all be refought with a modest collection. Campaign books, hobby magazines and online communities are full of scenario ideas that let you play meaningful games with limited forces. And as I said earlier, once you've collected the forces required for that game, you can then bolt extra units onto that, increasing the scope and flexibility of the army and the engagements that you can fight. At the end of the day, the joy of historical wargaming comes from immersion, narrative and the shared experience with your fellow gamers. You don't need deep pockets to recreate the thunder of Gettysburg or the chaos of Leipzig. With a bit of ingenuity, some careful planning and a willingness to try new approaches, and maybe smaller scales, you can have the spectacle of a mass battle without the stress of mass spending. So grab your glue, your paints, your cardboard heels and your smallest brushes, whether you're holding the line at Thermopylae or advancing across the fields of Europe. History is waiting and you don't need a fortune to bring it to life. So time for a hobby update, and there's a reason why I was emphasising so much 6mm in the talking point segment of this video, because as this video goes out today, I'm up in Sheffield for the Joy of 6 Wargame show. Now for anyone that doesn't know, this is a unique and highly regarded annual wargaming show dedicated entirely to the 6mm scale. Organised by Bacchus Miniatures, it has become known as the world's biggest small-scale wargaming event, attracting enthusiasts from across the UK and beyond, who share a passion for the visual spectacle and tactical depth that 6mm gaming provides. Now, unlike larger conventions that cater to all scales and genres, Joy of 6, as its name suggests, focuses exclusively on the tiny yet mighty 6mm figure. This creates a distinctive atmosphere where attendees can enjoy intricately crafted games that recreate massive battles in a compact footprint. From ancient conflicts to modern warfare, the demo and participation games on display are the perfect showcase for what can be achieved with smaller scales. Now the event typically draws a crowd of 300 or 400 attendees, sometimes more, offering a friendly and intimate experience. It's held each July at Sheffield Hallam University, and it's been a couple of years since I last attended, but I'm hoping to take in a couple of participation games and explore the trade stands while I'm there. I will be taking plenty of pictures as always and some video, but as I'm making this a long weekend with the trip with the wife, it may take me a few days before I get out a full show video. I'm sure she wouldn't appreciate it if I got back to the hotel, whipped out my laptop and said, I've just got to do the video, dear. So we've got time for a very quick Workbench update. Well, colour me surprised, but I've finished the Cossacks. I know I've been prevaricating over these for weeks, but I've finally completed them and I'm really pleased with how they've turned out. The figures are a mix of Wargames Foundry and some from Eureka Miniatures. The two ranges work surprisingly well together, despite coming from different manufacturers. Their size and overall size of the figures, the postures and so on work really well together. They're close enough that they are blend seamlessly together on the table, even though I've mixed the units up within units. One small issue I had was that some of the figures didn't look quite cold enough for the harsh conditions that I'm aiming to depict, so I added some scarves and a few cloaks to give them that extra wintry layer. Now these were made from carefully cut pieces of cotton t-shirt material soaked in Vallejo's Liquid Putty. This is a brilliant material made from like ground marble and a glue medium. It dries to a solid opaque white finish and is perfect for textures and structural work. I use it for filling gaps. And once I'd finished with these, I then gave them another brushing over of this material, watered down slightly. It makes a nice hard surface that's perfect for painting on. Now when I get back from my weekend trip, I will try and put together a video of how I've done these scarves and cloaks and so on using this material. I was trying to do it while painting the Cossacks, but it was just slowing everything down, so I decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a couple of figures that I can just experiment on and show how I can add a cloak or a scarf or other items to those figures. So I'll try and do a video as soon as I can once I get back from the weekend. Well, that's it for this week. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please join in the conversation in the comments below. And of course, please like, subscribe and share. And if you want to keep up to date with weekly content from the channel, please tap the bell notification icon. So until next week, stay safe, keep gaming and of course, keep rolling high.